I've just finished one of the most fascinating interviews of my career. You're going to want to see this. It's with Dr. Jerome Corsi. He is a brilliant man who has done incredible research on the election, what Trump needs to do to take down the deep state, how this will put a target on his back and the back of all of the superstars Trump is gathering around him. Please give this video a like, share it with others, and enjoy. Secret algorithms that were possibly used in the last few elections. Donald Trump is suing major mainstream media outlets. RFK Jr. has got the stock market dropping with big pharma. To help me go through some of these big stories, I have Dr. Jerome Corsi. Dr. Corsi, thank you so much for joining me again.
Great to be back with you, Stephen. Thank you.
So some background, Dr. Corsi is an author. He hosts a podcast, The Truth Central, as well as a website that brings together all this incredible information. Breaking news out this morning is that President Trump is suing the New York Times, CBS News, and a couple other news outlets for $10 billion. According to Trump's legal team, they used false and defamatory statements. They took it too far, and Trump believes that they are the full-throated mouthpiece of the Democrat Party. Any chance that these defamation and libel lawsuits go anywhere?
Well, I think that, of course, you'll have freedom of the press argued and defense of the newspapers, but the defamation is clearly what they did. And the lying, the distortion, the misrepresentation of honest information. They were politically motivated, all these publications, and the censorship has been tremendous. So I think for the first time, maybe in American history, some of these major newspapers and media are going to face charges that they're no longer acting as media. They're acting politically, they're politically motivated, and as such, they're going to lose some of their First Amendment protections, especially in defamation. So again, I think the intent to damage Trump's career, put him in prison, to destroy his presidential ambitions. These are things that are malicious use of the First Amendment privileges that newspapers have. And I'm quite frankly going to follow this with very close attention because I wrote my doctoral dissertation at Harvard, political science, on the First Amendment. And so it's one I'm going to take a very active interest in seeing how this is debated.
Okay, thank you for that. You wrote on Twitter that the Democrats are revealing their true selves through post-election day weasel tactics. What do you mean by that?
Well, I wrote an article in American Thinker that was saying that essentially the Democrats are not finished yet. The Democrats have, first of all, Donald Trump, I think, made a tactical error when he gave a video saying all the things he was going to do to dismantle the deep state. Now, it reminded me of when Jack Kennedy, after the Bay of Pigs, which was a fiasco, CIA attempted invasion of Cuba that failed, Jack Kennedy said he was going to break the CIA up into 1,000 pieces, and he didn't do it. Well, that was signing his death warrant because he put the CIA in notice he was going to come after them. So Trump has now put on notice a variety of agencies, including the FBI, the Department of Justice, the CIA, maybe the National Security Agency, certainly the intelligence apparatus of the United States and the justice apparatus, that he's coming after them. And so therefore, they're going to retaliate. I mean, they're like cornered. A number of these people, John Brennan comes to mind immediately as former head of the CIA. For a lot of their lying, these 50 CIA agents who said that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian propaganda, they did that in the 2020 election to take that issue off the table. They were lying. There's a lot of people who really, I think, in the intelligence community know that the agencies are going to be disbanded. Donald Trump is going to come after criminal prosecutions for some of them, and some of them may have even committed treason. I mean, certainly these attempts to interfere with the election by attacking the very fundamentals of election integrity, which the Democrats don't seem to have seen any scheme to lie, cheat, and steal elections that they don't like. They don't really want elections to be fair. Well, these are bordering on treason. And I think fundamentally, we've got to put them on notice that the treason charges are not off the table. And again, it's a very dangerous game to do, threatening it. It's better to start it and to actually get it going. So Trump could have waited 2 months, put his team in place, let people make their inferences, and then given the marching orders to go to war against the deep state. Instead, the deep state's gone to war against him. Now, there's several things I'm worried about. Number one is that this judge in New York, Judge Merchan, for a New York County case, the Stormy Daniels case, Trump has 34 convictions on felonies in that case. I think the whole case is a ridiculous case. I think it'll be dismissed on appeal. But the point is, that judge could demand that Trump come in for sentencing. It was originally scheduled on September 26th. And he could incarcerate Trump. Well, if Trump's incarcerated, his life's at risk. And again, I don't think this deep state has much choice. I think a third assassination attempt is now on the table. I think that they're going to do everything they can to try to block Trump from getting into the White House, which means lawfare is going to start to happen. You know, the idea that Trump would be in prison and when the Electoral College is going to meet, you might have riots in the streets. Well, again, all these things the deep state is prepared to come down hard on. I'm going to read a couple more articles. The one article is going to be these national security classifications. I just was studying them coming on the train I'm in Washington myself right now. And coming on the train, I was looking at these various national security directives that have come out of the Department of Defense. And a directive that was in 2024, Directive 5240.01, this is a directive right here, allows the military to be use lethal force if called out to support civilian law enforcement in situations where a confrontation between civilian enforcement and civilian individuals or group is reasonably anticipated. And that's at the discretion of the Department of Defense. The previous Department of Defense directives demanded that they be authorized by the president. So this is a loosening of those regulations. And I think it's for reasons where the deep state, if it can foment any violence in the street, especially if they can blame it on pro-Trump groups, would be not hesitant to utilize the military. I think we're also going to see schemes coming up in lawfare to say the Electoral College. If you'll remember, in 2016, they tried this Hamilton electors, which is saying that the electors did not have to vote the way their states voted, and that on character, even the state pledged to Donald Trump, the electors could change and vote at that time for the Democrat. They're going to be trying all these schemes. We're going to hear a bunch of them. Now, I'm not sure that the schemes are going to be used, because I think that Trump had such a mandate in this election, and the Democrats refrained from the steal tactics, I think largely because of the algorithms we revealed. I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute. But the point is that Trump has such a mandate right now that an assassination attempt on Trump or an attempt to block Trump from getting to the White House or to, put him in prison by this judge in New York County, I think the American people would react with vehemence against the deep state. And I don't think the deep state wants to take the anger of the American people to that level. But it's going to be contemplated, because the deep state, if it has relaxed right now and trying to make things appear to be a little bit more amicable, a peaceful transition, at heart, they don't mean it. At heart, they're still stealing elections. And I'm going to get involved in the elections that they are stealing and offer the information that we have, which I think can indisputably prove that the Democrats are still stealing elections.
Okay. I know when Trump came in 2017, Senator Chuck Schumer said that the intelligence agencies have 7 ways from Sunday to get back at you, and that he had foolishly provoked them. One of my worries, Dr. Corsi, is he's created this dream team like I've never seen before. People are very excited about it, and yet theoretically, all of those people could now have a target on their back. And I think one of the main outcomes of the JFK assassination was, hey, even a president can be taken out if they're not doing what we want. My worry is any of these, 7 or 8 big names could also have targets on their back. And if something happened to one of them, that would put fear into the entire populace. Do you worry about Elon Musk and Vivek and RFK Jr., all of them? Do you worry about them now having targets on their back? Let me take a quick commercial break, but this is absolutely fascinating. As you know, I've been working to rebuild my gut health, and I want to tell you about a way I've been doing that. It's with Armra colostrum. If you've done any research on colostrum, you know it's incredible for you. In fact, there's close to 5,000 research papers on the health benefits of colostrum for the human body. Armra colostrum is bovine colostrum with 400 plus functional nutrients, and it comes in the most bioavailable way. Now, the colostrum helps strengthen immunity and balance your gut's microbiome. The standard American diet has jacked up our gut. This is the way to balance it back out. Plus, it helps with your metabolism, energy, and recovery. One study showed colostrum has been shown to improve fitness endurance by 20% and decrease recovery time by 50% after intense exercise. Again, Armra colostrum has 400 plus functional nutrients. Now, we've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmra.com/Gardner and enter Gardner to get 15% off your first order. That's tryarmra.com/Gardner. Go check it out. All right, now let's get back to what you were saying.
Well, I think they need to get as tight security as they can get, including private security. And I'm sure they'll all invest in private security. And, we could help them do that. I've got enough security ties that I know professional security firms that would be glad to provide security for any of these people. But the point is that, yes, they're going to be targeted. And the first salvos will be like you've seen against Matt Gaetz and Hegseth recently, where they're going to try to say there's morality charges. They've had affairs with underage girls, or they're going to try to produce all of the dirt they can on these people, which is largely going to be unfounded. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. Although, there's evidently a congressional investigation on going on Gaetz right now that will be released. I don't think these charges have any real foundation. Certainly none I can see. And I've examined where the charges came from and who started propagating them. They seem to me to be typical woke insanity fiction. Like the Russian collusion had no basis in reality. None of these things these are just things to slur and damage a person's character and career. I think that the Trump nominees are going to have to go through that round. And then when they get in office, they're going to have to be protected. But what has to happen is enough quick action. In other words, enough talking about what we're going to do. We've got 2 months here where Trump can put the team in place. I would encourage him to stay largely at Mar-a-Lago. I know he's going to want to do things like attend events, the fight in Madison Square Garden, for instance, coming up. I'm sure he'll be there. He's going to be wanting to be public. Well, this would be a good time. He doesn't need to be campaigning anymore. He could just be staying in Mar-a-Lago and staying safe until the inauguration, when he gets another level of protection from the Secret Service. And I think it'd be wise to bear in mind that with 2 assassination attempts, there could easily be a third. And the second point is, when we do get into power, assuming we get through all the lawfare that's going to go on with the Electoral College, with the military, with the potential for violence in the streets, we got 2 months here where the Democrats' extreme left is going to be unhappy enough that they're going to want to pull some stunts and they're going to try to be vigilant and call them out on it. And they hate the Electoral College. They would love to get rid of the Electoral College. All these schemes aim towards voting the Electoral College out of office with a constitutional amendment. But the point is, once in power, these top officials have got to act decisively and quickly. They've got to fire people. They've got to do massive reorganizations. They've got to have bureaus that are shut down, agencies that are shut down, agencies that are put on notice they're moving. They've got to go after criminal prosecutions, especially in the Department of Justice, especially in the intelligence agencies. If they're going to declassify information, declassify as much as you can right away. Get it all out there. Go back to Benghazi. Expose Obama, expose Hillary. A lot of crimes committed by Hillary Clinton with her foundation. Let's get all these files out there. What was the truth about Benghazi? What was the truth about all the intelligence operations we've seen? And Robert Kennedy, I think, has to do the same thing in the health agencies. Let's get all this information as quickly as possible in the public. Let's make Julian Assange's efforts look minor once we've got control of these agencies, and let's publish everything. The Democrats are going to be running for the hills. Yeah. Let's let the American people really know that they're in a Truman Show, and our agencies think that they're lost any context that the American people are sovereign. They want to grab power. They want to control the media, and they want to run their agendas. And I think the American people, in a sense, it's almost fortunate that Donald Trump lost in 2020, because now we've had 4 years of Biden and Harris, and the left has let their agenda hang out naked in public.
Yeah. On that, do you think Trump will want to move? I know he wants to move forward and make elections fair going forward, but do you think there's any part of him that will ask for an investigation of the 2020 election to vindicate his name and reputation about that election?
I have no doubt about it. I think there's, in this article I wrote in American Thinker, I'm doing a lot of writing in American Thinker right now. I outlined 3 separate investigations that I think Trump is going to do. Number one, he's going to do an investigation of the 2 assassination attempts on his life. I think he's got indisputable evidence that some in the Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security displayed criminal negligence, allowing the attacks to happen. He's going to force those individuals to cooperate with a special counsel, and he's going to expose, going back to Jack Kennedy, the CIA and Secret Service's involvement in killing Kennedy. And my book on the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the final analysis, showed the forensic evidence from the x-rays that Jack Kennedy was shot twice from the front. It's going to come out that we've been lied to for 60 years by the intelligence agencies. Why did buildings that were not hit by airplanes in 9/11, why did building number 7 or 6 or 7 come down? We invaded Iraq in 1991. Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. That's what Colin Powell told the United Nations. None were found. Why did a bad pandemic bad flu turn into a pandemic and a lockdown with a vaccine that doesn't stop you from getting the disease, but actually may kill you? That's number one. I think we're going to have the assassination attempts reviewed, and it's going to put the very credibility of the CIA on the line. We're going to learn a lot about the CIA trying to create a Truman Show and lie to us, which has been going on, I think, since its inception. Number two, I think Trump's going to investigate the weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI and the intelligence agencies. I think he's going to go back to the 2016 campaign, 2020 and 2024. I believe he will emphasize the truth about the Russian collusion hoax and the Mueller investigation farce. Number three, I think he's going to look at the voter fraud that stole the 2020 election that was used limitedly here in 2024 based on the discovery of these secret cryptographic algorithms that are embedded in State Board of Election voter registration files. They facilitate the creation, hiding, and voting of falsified, quote, voters to be available in various election fraud schemes with particular focus on mail-in ballot irregularities. at God's Five Stones. If you go to our website, G-O-D, no apostrophe in the S, F-I-V-E, spell it out, Stones, STONES.com. We found algorithms now in 4 of the battleground states. We found them in Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, and one other. We found them in about 9 states now: New York, New Jersey, Ohio. It appears that Texas, these algorithms look to me like they're embedded perhaps in every single state database. And when that information gets to the American public, I think we're going to have, again, a major reaction.
Okay. Those are all things that I think myself and my audience would love to get answers on as a starting place. What, you're a JFK expert. Now you have his nephew, RFK, taking on some of the biggest businesses and industries in the world. Just announcing him as Health and Human Services Secretary wiped out billions of dollars in stock value of big pharma stock companies. He wants to look at the vaccine schedule. He wants to look at the 1,000 plus food additives that are poisoning America, chronic illness. But there's a lot of money. There's a lot of incentive to keep us sick. There's money in sickness, not in health. What are your thoughts on him being named? And is he the one in most danger based on his mission?
Well, first of all, Robert Kennedy has been very complimentary to me about the book that I co-authored with Dr. David Mantik on the JFK skull x-rays and the autopsy collection of the archives. And he was very, very much impressed the quality of that book. The book is, The Assassination of John F. Kennedy, the final analysis. And it did prove convincingly that Jack Kennedy was shot twice from the front. Robert Kennedy is going to face many threats of assassination. He's got to know his life is now at risk. But again, the protection in that, first of all, I think he's going to have to seek protection from God. That's number one. And Donald Trump obviously had protection. The hand of God was on him, especially in that Pennsylvania shooting where he just turned his head at the right split moment. And the shot, which I'm sure had been lasers sighted to hit him in the head, it glanced and hit his ear. And that's miraculous. The one thing that Robert Kennedy's got is if he were to fall down on the sidewalk and scrape his knee, Big Pharma would be blamed. And so Big Pharma, in a sense, ought to keep Robert Kennedy safe. The vengeance of the American people, if something happens to Donald Trump or to Robert Kennedy, is going to be strong. But in a sense, the deep state's counting on that, because if they get conservatives out in the streets, the military's ready to go. You can't defeat this deep state with violence. You can defeat the deep state with truth, investigations, and refusal to cooperate. The best way to defeat it would be take all the children out of the public schools. The public schools would collapse. The teachers union would become bankrupt. That would be one of my strategies to get rid of these people. The point is, I think Donald Trump is going to give Robert Kennedy full investigative authority. And we've got to get to the bottom of a lot of things. Where he's right about the vaccines that are causing autism. And what babies don't need 25 or 50 or 100 injections. These injections are not safe. These vaccines are not tested. These vaccines are bioweapons. You've got a depopulationist group of satanic leaders like Bill Gates at the head of this that want to kill people. I think there's too many people in the world. Since Henry Kissinger signed that National Security Memorandum 200 in the 70s, the official policy of the United States is depopulation, reduced by billions the population of the world. Well, the two things that do that are war and disease. And so therefore you've got a disease industry and you've got a war industry. And we have perpetual wars. You've got now people saying that the only way to make a profit in this world is to have wars. And, the bankers and the arms dealers make a lot of money while everybody else kills themselves. Well, we got to stop the wars. We got to stop the war in Ukraine. We got to stop the war in the Middle East. They're both insane and unnecessary wars. And I think Donald Trump will take strong steps to do it. But before Robert Kennedy is finished, he's going to have criminal prosecutions coming out of these people. These people falsified tests. They paid for favorable advertising. They're now putting tons of commercials of drugs on the television networks. So the television networks don't dare publish a news story contrary to big pharma, or they'll lose the revenue. There's far too much money circulating around. The Biden family has gotten billions of dollars in corruption. I think the CIA is keeping the Ukraine war going because they like the money laundering out of Ukraine. They're doing it themselves. I think we'll find out the CIA is running the drug trade and the border. They're going to run the pedophilia trade. And I caught HSBC Bank 2011 running money in a money laundering, and the Senate Permanent Investigating Committee took my research. They wrote a 350-page report saying HSBC was working for the Mexican drug cartels. HSBC got fined $1 billion by the Department of Justice. Nobody went to prison. And TD Bank just got fined $3 billion for money laundering. You can't run a drug international cartel without the cooperation of the intelligence agencies who know what you're doing. They're going to want their cut. And you have to have a bank. You can't drive a semi-trailer full of $100 bills to, pull up to a taco stand and buy your lunch by opening up the back of the semi-trailer and pulling out a few $100 bills. You got to get the money into the banking system. And so therefore the banks are corrupt. The CIA is corrupt to the core. And there's going to be criminal and perhaps treasonous prosecution. If I were John Brennan, I'd be worried about treason charges right now. And again, the lying that went on in Russian collusion, Hillary Clinton's got a lot to answer for. Her private email server while she was Secretary of State, running a scam with the Clinton Foundation being open at the same time, taking money from oligarchs like Pinochet in 2013 and Ukraine, which started the problems in Ukraine. State Department engineering the Maidan rebellion and doing that with political operatives who were leftists. The Arab Spring, which destabilized countries across the northeast of Africa. I mean, there's a lot of crimes that were committed here. And if they're revealed to the American people with documented evidence, starting with the JFK assassination, we get the final documents and we learn that Lee Harvey Oswald was working for the CIA on November 22nd, 1963, and thought he had another assignment, watching the gun running that was coming out of Dallas to Cuba at that time. Jack Ruby was in the middle of it. And I think Lee Harvey Oswald was a patsy. I don't think he fired a single shot. We learned that conclusively. That's going to reverse 61 or 62 years of lying by the CIA with the mainstream media complicit. These are major revelations coming. I just want to see Donald Trump, number one, stay safe in the next 2 months, and number two, block the lawfare that could try to rig the Electoral College against him.
Okay. A big one that people in my circle of influence would like to see is RFK Jr. has written multiple bestsellers against Dr. Fauci, decades of corruption, Frankenstein, crazy medical stuff that he's been funding, the gain of function stuff that was moved out of America and secretly funded over in China, Ukraine. Do you see RFK Jr. bringing Dr. Fauci back into the spotlight?
I'm certain he will. And some of these people like Dr. Fauci, I think Dr. Fauci could face charges for genocide. I think he could face international tribunal charges. These people are mass murderers. These people are evil. And they use medicine, which is supposed to heal you. They use the medical community, which they paid to make these injections into people without testing them. These injections are causing massive heart attacks. They're causing cancers. We're now getting documentation of all the illnesses that are occurring. I think anybody who got one of these shots, their life expectancy is limited, reduced by the fact of the shot. Eventually that shot, unless they managed to get the spike protein production out of their system, which again is something that can be done, but it's requires the type of thinking that Dr. Zelenko was able to do when he was alive, when he came up with the hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin zinc regimen protocol to beat COVID. And I worked with him very closely. Dr. Zelenko and I were close friends. We smoked cigars together. We had lunch together. We spent a lot of time together. I sorely miss him. He was a very spiritual man. He was a very brilliant man, guided by God, and I'm sure he's with God right now. But he passed away with cancer, and he got at least extended his life to get us through the pandemic. I had a telemedicine company at that time. We saved thousands of lives. And the Claiborne investigation came after me again. And so therefore this government is evil, of Obama and the left and the Democrats. I think that the Democratic Party has moved from being, it is a communist party. I think we should quit calling it the Democratic Party. It's the Communist Party. And now it's moving to becoming a treasonous party. Its goal is to destroy the United States of America and undermine our fundamental freedoms. Let's call it for what it is. And if the Democratic Party wants to commit treason, then let's have some treason prosecutions. They're capital crimes, and these people can swing in the wind.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to lie. When Dr. Zelenko passed, I had tears in my eyes. One of my daughters said, "What's going on?" I said, the Jewish doctor that gave me the idea that saved me when I got Delta COVID died, and I'm just really grateful for his life. So I loved Dr. Z. What about Ukraine? Trump is immediately jumping in, trying to get this war shut down. Just last night at the America First Institute dinner, he's standing there in a tuxedo and he's saying, in the last 3 days, thousands of more humans have died because this war keeps dragging on. Meanwhile, Jake Sullivan and Antony Blinken are saying before Trump puts his hand on the Bible in DC, they're going to send every last dollar they can to Zelensky. What is going on there? Is it just money laundering? Is it covering up Biden crime? Is it pushing the agenda of NATO to make Russia the boogeyman? What are your thoughts on all of that?
All of the above. I think first of all, they're going to steal as much money as they can before the spigot is turned off. And there's a lot of people in that trough. That money is unaccounted for. Money is not audited. You know, the Pentagon can't find at least $1 trillion, maybe $2 trillion. They don't know what happened to it. The money is being stolen. You know, it's hard to find a politician in Washington, D.C. who hasn't been bought by someone. Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, her family's worth a huge amount of money in China. That family would not be alive if Mitch McConnell didn't do what China wanted. He's been to China. He's been wined and dined. He's gotten millions of dollars out of China. Biden's done the same. They've all winked and let each other do it. Hillary's gotten money from the Clinton Foundation. Obama's living in mansions all over. I can't count how many mansions he's got. What is it, up to 4 now? You know, he's at Martha's Vineyard and every other place he wants to be. Another mansion in Washington, D.C. You know, these people are acting like they're the oligarchs. They're the gods of the world, and they don't believe in God at all. It's an anti-God, anti-human agenda, and it's certain to fail. You know, Satan, God did not create this experience for Satan to win. These people would require, if we fight them on moral terms, and I've been doing a lot with Archbishop Vigano. Archbishop Vigano just issued a statement on the election, which we have on gods5stones.com. The second paragraph, he credited my group and me by name with having blocked the election steal because we found the algorithms and we broke the code of how the Democrats were doing the voter fraud with these algorithms.
Let me ask you a little more about that, because just this morning I'm reading that Dave McCormick is declared the winner. Associated Press declares him the winner. Chuck Schumer tries to block him from senator orientation. He goes anyway. Now, sitting Senator Bob Casey in Pennsylvania is saying, wait a minute, we found this giant box of votes. Every vote counts. Election day is over, and these ballots some of them don't even have dates. A huge percentage, I think I read over 90% of them are going for Bob Casey. Like, to me, this seems like a ballot dump. Is this what you're talking about with the algorithms, or is this? Okay, tell me a little more about that.
Well, the algorithms are codes that are put into these databases that allow you to create false voters. So, for instance, in Wisconsin, another case where this Eric Hovde, who was running for Senate, had a big dump at 4 a.m. against him of 100,000 ballots from Milwaukee, and he lost when he was winning all night. Okay, so what the Democrats do is for instance, in Wisconsin, there's probably 1 million cloned votes. So what they do is they take a voter who's inactive or dead or moved out of the state, and they make a duplicate of that voter. So that voter's now got a second record. But it's done through these algorithms, which rearrange the order. It's like a card marking scheme. You've got to shuffle the cards before you can put in your mark cards. So they rearrange the voter ID list numbering system so that they can slip these false voters in and they look legitimate. They get them new state ID numbers, and they vote those state ID numbers often in mail-in ballot schemes. Well, no mail-in ballot sent because that person doesn't really exist. Okay, or they're long gone, or they're inactive. They don't want to send out a ballot. The machine says that they requested a ballot. Ballot may be printed and run through the machine, but it was not folded, wasn't mailed. But now you've got a state ID that requested a ballot. When that ballot was run through the machine as a mail-in ballot, that's a certifiable vote, even though the person doesn't exist. Now, these states have millions of these records, and they're just sitting there. So then the algorithms are put into the state board of election or the Secretary of State computers at the heart of the running system of the computers that have the voter registration file. Now, in Georgia, we documented that they put back in 50,000 purged voters back into the file. We found votes in this year's election where, for instance, they found a file for someone who had moved to South Carolina, but the record was yet in the Georgia database as a Georgia voter. So they voted that record in the machine. Then they created a clone of that record. They took the original record out. They voted the clone. They took the clone out of the voter database, and they put the original record back. Okay, so they double voted that vote. That all is done by algorithms which find those votes, use them, dispose of them. The Georgia nerds, the GA nerds _X _real on X, we're working with them and reporting what they're doing. They found in the algorithms that created 3,000 early votes in Georgia in 2024, this year. And those voters, all 3,000 of them, did not have a voter registration in the database after they voted. So that's a clear indication those 3,000 had to have had at one time a voter ID, or they couldn't have voted. They were obviously these clones or false voters. They voted. They're in the voter record. Their voter records say they voted. Okay, but in 2024, but they're not today in the voter registration database in Georgia. So they were removed. Okay. And that's what the criminals do. They create these duplicates. They create all kinds of phantom voters. And the Democrats' goal is to find and create non-existent voters that they can vote. And they have these complicated schemes. They never thought they would be caught on these algorithms. But what we did is we now know their mathematical codes. We can show you the scheme that they're using. We can show it being in use. We can show it producing. So every one of these ballot challenges, okay, and by the way, in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's already ruled that many of these ballots can't be used because they aren't dated, they are defective one way or the other. And the Bucks County commissioners said, we don't care if the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that. We're going to do it anyway. Okay, everybody violates the law all the time. And we're violating this law to let the court know we're violating the law, let the court do something about it. Well, the court doesn't have an enforcement unit. If they don't respect the law and follow the court, how can they give an election to Bob Casey? These people don't care about rules, morality, right? All they care about is power, stealing, cheating, winning, and taking your children and making them have a sex change operation so they can't reproduce, killing as many babies in the womb as they can. They're producing vaccines that will kill you one way or the other, lying to you that these vaccines are going to keep you safe from the disease. The people and say if we deny an election, we're committing a crime, because we point out, no, that's all going to change right now. They did not use the algorithms in 2024 in the swing vote because we, through the intelligence agencies, let these criminals know that we're going to catch them and they were going to be charged with treason. But they did use the algorithms in some of the down ballots. And now that it's over here, we're going to go with work. And again, it's today I've already approached and we're in discussions with the various campaigns that are going to challenge elections. We're going to offer to give them. I'm going to start publishing next week. I'll publish an article. I've got it already written. It'll be already submitted today to the American Thinker on Wisconsin to show exactly what went on in Wisconsin. Right, I have written already the one article we just reviewed in American Thinker. I'm going to have the next one was going to be on Wisconsin steel and what we've got. We can show the district court that there are, at least we can give them 845,000 clones. If they want the individual records, we can tell them here's the numbers of the voters. Go see the clones yourself. Okay. Now that's a crime right there. You can't have double records under two different IDs for the same person.
Yeah,
that would allow that person to cast two votes.
Dr. Corsi, is this a good example? Because I've covered this story many times on my channel. The SEB, the State Election Board of Georgia, admitted in a hearing there are 500,000 missing ballots. After doing all of our forensic research, our only conclusion is someone deleted them so that we can't find them, or they never existed to begin with. That was their conclusion. And then their answer was, let's move forward to the next election. Is that a good example of these algorithms being deployed? Most likely, yes. And I think, again, the algorithms are used in many different ways. Because look at it as a card marking scheme. If you're the casino and you're dealing, playing 21, or you're handing out even poker and you're the dealer, you can set the marked cards where you want them. So the player that you want to get a royal flush gets a royal flush. But you look at the cards, and unless you know the scheme, the cards look random to you. You don't know that you've done card number 3 to your confederate, and card number 8, and card number 13, and all those are set to give them a royal flush. So these voter registrations are equally modified. You don't get your voter ID number by when you registered. So it's a mixing up of the files. I use the example of how they start the scheme. When you and your wife talk about your children, you say our first child. You don't have to name that child. You know who you're talking about. Or your third child was good in math. You know who you're talking about. Well, the state says your first child is number 1. Your second child is number 12. Your next child is 23. Next child is 34, then 45, and 56. I don't have 56 kids. I've got 5 kids or 6 kids. So, well, that's okay, because don't worry about it. We put the real kids there's real kids 2 through 11, they just belong to somebody else. They're sorted into your record. So your record isn't your record anymore. And by the way, kid number 3 and kid number 7, we made up. They don't exist. They're clones of other records. But unless you found the other record, you wouldn't know it's a clone. So it looks legitimate. And so you give it a state ID. Now you've just given my made-up voter a cloned ID, real ID.
I can vote that voter. So I hide that back into the database where I know where it is. I have, let's say, 500,000 of those. So it comes to be 8:30 in the afternoon, in the evening, and I say I need 10,000 votes. I go to the computer and get 10,000 of my, made up children to ask for a ballot, and they get a mail-in ballot. They never, it's printed for them and run through the machine, so it looks like they voted. Yeah. Okay, but then I don't let anybody inspect the mail-in ballots. I don't let anybody see if they were folded or if they were mailed, or I say the numbers match, so therefore it's legitimate. I don't let you send out anybody to see if these people existed or to find out if it's a duplicate vote. I prevent you from doing the things if I'm the criminal. And I'm saying the criminal could be outside the State Board of Election. It could be intelligence agencies operating a unit of election interference. And all they've done is got access to these algorithms in the different states with operatives trained in order to watch the elections and manipulate them through the voting of these false votes. The Democrats are constantly, every one of the Democrat schemes comes down to finding voters who don't exist and getting them legitimate IDs where they can be voted. The same when they go out and canvass, they pay somebody to get 400 signatures, and they get 400 signatures, and they come into this county board of elections, and the county board of elections just registers them all. They don't go out to see that there were, 400 people in a trailer park that was a homeless park, and they were all registered to a fire station. They don't go out and see that they were, names made up out of a telephone book, or just out of fake names out of apartments, because there's no searching to see who these people are. Well, that's way that kind of canvassing and vote harvesting is another way the Democrats get fake votes. People don't exist. They get them legitimate state IDs. They hide where they are in the database. The algorithms can find them. And when they need 10,000, they just vote them. Need 30,000, they just vote them.
Wow. Are you familiar with Jovan Pulitzer Hutton?
Yes, and I was on a podcast with him, in fact, yesterday, that was done by Steve Stern.
Okay. He had told me privately, he was part of this big multi-million recount in Maricopa County, Arizona for 2020. And once they finally proved all of the shenanigans through forensic, the hand count, the digital ballots, none of it matching up, they finally said, okay, well, what we'll do is, in order to prove it, you can pull one ballot at a time. We'll go back into the warehouse. We'll find that one ballot and bring it out, and you can look at it. They would never allow them to look at the batches or multiple. Is that so that they can't find the person and the duplicate?
Yes, if you let Jovan go at this, he could prove that they weren't folded. They weren't mailed. The signatures don't match the signatures on the registration cards. That one person may be responsible for signing 10,000 of them. Okay, that there's all the schemes going on he could detect. Okay, and they are not going to let if they let a forensic, that's why I think the solutions is to go into the district courts and to do this before certification. Because now we're not challenging a certified election. Go challenge one before certification. And then demand that the district court give us forensic ability to look at the ballots. We do that, the game is over for these cheaters. Now, when we get law enforcement authority, with the Department of Justice doing a criminal investigation of the election fraud, that authority will be there. And this scheme is gone. It's, I think, why they did not do it in 2024. And again, in 2024, we told them we were watching it, we would catch it, and they would go to prison or hang. And I put out that message with God's 5 Stones very directly, and then we published the data. Go to God's 5 Stones, you'll see the algorithms in all of these states. Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, 4 of the battleground states, Ohio, New York, New Jersey, Texas. You'll see what the algorithms look like. Now, they're very complicated mathematically, but the crypto, the professional code breakers who have looked at this, or code makers, have acknowledged that Andrew Paquette, the genius who did this, PhD, Andrew Paquette. He's a computer his specialty is computer animation. And he's a genius with this. He recognizes patterns. He's the one who found it. I did not find it. What I did is I understood it, because again, it's very complicated mathematically. I'm a political scientist. I have a PhD from Harvard in political science from 1972. I've been studying election data for decades, and I validated that Paquette was right, and that started in the summer, early summer. And then we spent the last few months finding these algorithms in these different states and publishing them on God's 5 stones. We're now in the process of raising additional money, because we're going to continue God's 5 stones into the future. We're going to do 2 things. We're going to continue to work to get the criminals caught and to save, hopefully, the elections that are currently trying to be stolen. The Pennsylvania, the Wisconsin, maybe some of these in California, maybe Kerry Lake, where our data is available to whomever wants to use it. And we'll assist them. We'll help them build their cases. We're willing to testify in their cases. Okay, and so therefore, if these people begin to press right now federal district court challenges, we've got time to block the certification, get forensic analysis. Eventually, we'll get that, I believe, once the law enforcement agencies are in the control of Donald Trump, because he's not going to let these election frauds go undetected and punished. There's tons of information in the intelligence agencies, and we got Hillary Clinton's files and see just from what we've seen from the Assange release of emails, crime after crime after crime is going to be indicated in these classified documents that the CIA has committed. Involvement in international and domestic politics at a scale that the Church Committee would have been appalled to see. And I think we're going to find that the American people, in a very short period of time, we are now that we've had a fundamental change. And I view this election as a mandate, a complete rejection of the woke agenda. What did Kamala Harris run on? That she herself was a terrible candidate, couldn't hardly get a sentence out without cackling and laughing, did a disgraceful interview with Brett Baer, Fox News, made a fool of herself. And this woman has no policy knowledge at all. So they were mentally incompetent Joe Biden or a completely unqualified Kamala Harris. And I think the Democrats next would run a dead person, weekend with Bernie, and they do artificial intelligence to do the talking. So the American public now knows that some Democratic cabal and the secret's running the government. These people are incapable of running it. They're just spokespeople. A dead person with AI could do better than they do, and you wouldn't have to feed them or house them or entertain them. Okay, it'd be cheaper and easier. Yeah. It'd be much more easy to manage an AI, created cartoon character. At any rate, that's number one. What's the agenda? We're going to take your children, we're going to do sex changes operations on them, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it because we're not going to tell you. If you object, we're going to take the kids away from you. Okay, we're going to have massive inflation, so your groceries are going to cost you $500 a month. At the same time, we're going to reduce your employment opportunities, so your income diminishes. And if you complain about it, you'll lose your job. If you don't use the right pronouns, you'll lose your job. If you don't buy this entire schizophrenic agenda where I can make up my own reality, tell you that my sex is different from my gender is, is a gender of a transhuman, transgender giraffe that lived 400 years ago, and you're supposed to celebrate that. This insanity, we're supposed to celebrate schizophrenia and sexual perversions that are, where do we stop? What's next? So we get, now we're into pedophilia being legitimized, and next we can have bestiality, and then we go to necrophilia. Where will these people stop?
Yeah. Dr. Corsi, this has been a fascinating discussion. I definitely want to have you back on the show. If people want to follow you or get more information, where can I point them towards?
Please, the God's 5 stones, because all their donations there help tremendously. And, $5, $10 donations are welcome. But GOD, no apostrophe in the S, FIVE, spelled out, number spelled out, not written, as a numeral, and stonesplural.com. And there's a lot of information there in all of these states. You'll find a lot of videos there. This video will be archived on that site as soon as we've got it.
Okay.
And we'll put this on social media as well. And then I'm doing podcasts daily on thetruthcentral.com. thetruthcentral.com.
Okay. I will put direct links to that as well as to your X account. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for fighting the battles that we don't even know are going on. I know you're in DC now, as you mentioned, getting ready to go to battle. I just wish you the best of luck, Godspeed, and I hope you'll come on the show again in the future.
Stephen, I'll come on anytime you ask. I enjoy you and I enjoy the show.
Great. Thank you so much.